Our next speaker is Ellen McManus, the lovely tag-along, but in no way do I say that seriously, because Ellen in her own right has accomplished so very, very much. She's going to talk about their model with their daughter Laura, which is the host model, which I talked about a little bit, or shared living Scylla. Ellen is the mother of Laura, who is 39 years old and was born with cerebral palsy. She has been a disability advocate for more than 18 years, and it shows because of all of her wisdom. On a local level, Ellen has worked with a group of dedicated women who are also mothers of children with disabilities. Their advocacy has always focused on the very things that they wanted for their children that they thought would also help other children as well. And their quote is, our work never ends, and I think we'd all agree with that, right? And as Lori's hobby in her spare time is to host speaking events for people with disabilities and their family members, we would agree. Ellen also created, when working with the other mothers, they created a day program without walls. I love that concept, called the ACT program, where adult family members spend most of their day in the community learning life skills and doing volunteer activities that led to jobs for some of them. She is a board chair of Neighborhood Services Incorporated, a former board member of CAU, Community Alternatives Unlimited, and a former chair of the Village of Wilmette Commission for People with Disabilities. On a state level, Ellen is deeply proud to have had the honor of being the co-founder of the Family Support Network, a great resource for families in Illinois. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Ellen McManus.
Actually, I can begin to tell you that I don't know if I have the capacity to speak this morning. I will tell you a little bit about the agency that Laura has been served for the past 18 years. And it is called, as Barbara said in the introduction, Neighborhood Services. And we have started from the very beginning with the shared living model, because this was the vision of the leaders that co-founded it. And Elaine Greenbaum is the main woman that was the one that speared the agency forward. And many of you would not know Elaine Greenbaum, but you do probably know Sheila Hebein if you have a person with Down syndrome. And Sheila and Elaine also were the co-founders of the Down syndrome clinic in Park Ridge. So she really was a forward thinker and absolutely a beautiful, dedicated woman. She had a son, Nate, who never was served by Neighborhood Services by his choice. And they have now left the area. They're in St. Louis, and this is a number of years. But I had heard through the network that at one point he had a serious relationship with a girlfriend, and I hope that they are married. So it just shows you the dedication of a lot of people that are like those of you here today, that we can begin to see a vision for our children in different ways. So she now, oh, you still don't have it. Okay, so I'll just keep on talking. She now lives in her own home, and she has from the time that she left our home. And it's kind of interesting that, I really believed that that she should stay near to where we were. That was just like my gut feeling. Now, not everybody has the same feeling about it. But her grandmother had left her some money to put down for a mortgage for her own home. And, I mean, we kind of helped the grandmother make that decision. And so then I thought, all of Laura's life, she has lived in the community that we now live in. Ed was born in our community, and 3 out of the 4 in our family went to New Trier Township for school, except for me, because I was born in Iowa. But I felt like this was her roots. I was going to do everything I could to keep her roots where they were. And it has made a beautiful difference in her life, because she really is known in our community. She can almost go anywhere. And people who know her, and just the other day we were at Corner Bakery, and her advisory homeroom teacher from high school was just so surprised to see her at Corner Bakery, and she went right over and started talking to Laura, and I was sort of incidental, and I thought, well, I better find out who this is because this sounds exciting. And so then she introduced herself again, and Laura gave her a big smile. It was just a happy day for Laura. Sometimes Laura is not as friendly to others as she used to be when she was younger. So anyway, she has a beautiful week that she spends her time in her life. And again, this has been from the beginning, that she had in-home as her day program, and that meant for us, as we decided to interpret what that would mean, that she spends 2 days in her community. She goes grocery shopping, she shreds paper and takes it to a local pet shop. She has lunch with mom and dad, and then sometimes she does have doctor's appointments and whatever. But it's all community-oriented to her. And we're still holding on to that tightly. It's a little bit of a crunch. And then she also was a part of the adult transition community program that Barbara briefly decided that 5 of us who were parents that had a vision that we wanted a program for our kids that would follow them through the rest of their life. It would be like a woven path for them. And then always keeping in mind that we hope that others would be able to do the same. And then that program funding changed, and Laura's SILA money couldn't be used for that. So by encouragement from another parent, I decided to make a visit to Arts of Life in Glenview. And they also have a studio in the city. And I really didn't think, you speak about capacity, I didn't think that Laura had the capacity to be in a studio for that length of time throughout the day, which would have been about 5.5 to 6 hours, and focus on art. But I thought the only way that we're going to know is that I'm going to go and experience it and see what staff feel, and then I will have Laura come and visit. And so that is what we did, and it was just a beautiful experience. I walked around and sat side by side with some of the other artists that were very intent on doing their artwork, and it was just an absolutely beautiful environment. And so then I said to them, I would like Laura to come and visit, but I said, she will not be able to put her brakes on her wheelchair. She's going to want to explore her environment before she gets serious about doing anything. And I said, this is how she becomes comfortable. So they were very, very cooperative to that, and for the first 2 months, they let her do this. And then one day, she went to her workstation, she took the paints, she made a drawing, and when she was done, she put the drawing in her lap and wheeled her chair over to the studio manager, tapped her on the shoulder, and pointed to her painting. And so Hillary, the manager, took the painting from Laura and held it up to the other artist and said, I think Laura has something to show you. And everybody looked, and everybody clapped. And so she then became a part of a community. And that is what the artists are. They are a community, and they are a community that is interested in art making. So this was a way for me to be taught a different way for Laura's capacity. We had no idea how it was that she loved art the way that she did. And so she's been there now for almost 5 years. And the first year that she was there, every year they have an annual awards, and they gave her an award for teaching them how best to work with people that have gifts like Laura. So it's just a complete change, because you all know in the school system, it's always like what the teacher thinks the child needs to know rather than what the child is lifting up for the teacher to embrace and to move forward. So we just are so grateful for them. And then I would say in her home, she owns her own home and has from the time that she moved in. And so she is the landlord. and it's in a 19-unit building, and the people in the building obviously do not think of Laura's home as a group home. It's Laura's home. And I attended one of the first board meetings, and a little bit later I asked if I could be on the board of the condo association, because I thought this is my way of knowing what's going on, getting to know the other people in the building, and I was really glad that I made that decision. And so she's definitely one of the other unit owners, and it used to be that when the elevator in the building broke down, I was called. And now someone in the building calls, the management company who calls the elevator repairs, it gets done, and it's sort of like, we have a resident that needs the elevator and we need it fixed right away. And it's that kind of inclusion that they have put their arms around in this, not this winter, but last winter. It got so badly that we were having troubles, and I was away, and they were having troubles figuring out how they were going to get Laura up to the Pace bus to go to her day program. And so one of the residents went out on a Sunday afternoon and shoveled a path for her to get to the top of the hill to take her Pace bus to work. And it just, again, showed me how beautiful they have incorporated her. So we really are just so grateful for what they have done. And this, means for us a security that she will have a roof over her head for the rest of her life, we hope. And we do have, obviously, guardians lined up for her. But I will say as a parent that we can't expect our extended family and our children to take on this commitment the way that we have. And I really thought by this time in my life that there would be very little I would have to do to keep Laura's life going. I am 75 years old, and there's no way I'm going to retire from this because she just needs me. And someone, an extended family member, asked me yesterday if we would ever think of moving to Hawaii because we love Hawaii. And I said I would never be able to move. I would never be able to move that far away. And I sometimes do, when I'm back at home, put barriers in front of me saying there's only so much that I can do with her life today, even though I don't like the staff person that's there. But I have to step back. I do have to have a life of our own. And so I have tried hard to create quality for her, but I also have to have a life of myself and with Ed and our rest of our family in order to feel that that we have to also allow other people into her life, and we can't control her life for everything. And oftentimes I always will ask the staff, what do you think will work for her? And I listen to what they say. I take it, I respect it. If it's something we have tried a million times and it doesn't work, if they have any idea of a possibility of it working, then I will say, I think it's manageable. I always say to myself, it's not going to impact on her health and her safety and her welfare. It's an idea. Why don't we try it? Maybe it will work. And sometimes it does, and then this does give them the empowerment that they have a way of contributing to the quality of her life. And I take what they say really seriously, and I also have to respect them, because if we are giving up something when our child is being cared by someone else, whatever the setting is, it is. But it's important for our family member to have that kind of freedom and to have a life. And Laura's got friends that she made on her own that we've had nothing to do with. She created them. And she's a person that is nonverbal and is in a wheelchair, and all these things that would keep her from her capacity. And capacity is the vision and the way that you look upon the ability of another person. And it is without ICAPs. Her ICAP is very low. And all of the clinical work that they have done on her and testing they have done over the years, that is not Laura. Laura is who she is with her spirit. And she really, I get so much inspiration from her, because she just, if she wants something, she's so determined to get it that I have to think twice if I'm going to say, oh no, honey, you can't have that. I'm thinking, how could we make it happen? And that's how I have always tried to look on the whole of her life. And I always say to caregivers who ask me, how are we going to know what Laura is saying, since she doesn't have the language that we're familiar with? And then I always say, come and sit by her side, and you will get to know her, and she will get to know you. And so there you see, this is Laura outside of her condominium. It's in a small little business district that she was familiar with in her earlier years, all through up until presently, and she will live there as long as that building is standing and in good shape. And we are 7 blocks away from where she lives, which is, to us, is really very important. And then this is a balcony outside of her living room, and we love that balcony because there's a lot of street people walking back and forth to and from the shops, and then it's just a nice way to be waving to your neighbors, and it's just a really relaxing place. It has a shaded tree, and it's just a lovely place to spend time in the afternoon, which you could call her downtime. Isn't a very good picture, but this shows how amazing Laura has taken to dogs. And we never had dogs in our family home, but we had cats. And so this was a new awakening for me, that dogs had a way of communicating with her and she with them. And she had barely met this dog. And this was not a dog that was trained to work with people with disabilities. This was a caregiver, live-in caregiver, who had the dog. And the dog put his paws up onto the arm of her wheelchair. And there they are. They just had an instant communicated bonding with each other. And we would love her to have a dog permanently in her home, but it has to be agreed upon by the live-in support person, because she would have to do a lot of the work. She or he would have to do a lot of the work. The live-in support person does work the equivalent of 40 hours a week, does get health benefits, and does get vacation time. And they work out their hours of when they will work based on what contract they have with the agency. So then, their total package is their board and room, and then they're paid. They work a certain number of hours for that board and room, and then they also are paid an hourly rate if they volunteer to work beyond that. But we have another person that comes in for the daytime hours and some of the weekend hours that also pretty much equals a full-time job, because she does need 24/7 care. We have had this as a 2-person home with Laura and another person. This is this is the caregiver that had the dog. And then talk about coming and sitting beside her and seeing what kind of a relationship and communication you can build. This was Laura, deciding that she wanted to be the hairstylist for the day, and Lisa allowed her to do it, and it was at a community fest honoring open housing in our community next to us. We live in Wilmette and Winnetka. 60 years ago, Martin Luther King walked our streets and talked about open housing, and this was really pretty shocking that in this community that they would receive that kind of message. But it was because they had leaders in our community that saw a vision. And so this was the 60th anniversary of that, and I had been involved in its celebration. So then I brought shirts for all the staff that were coming that day, and I did it primarily because Laura loves that kind of thing, but then it made them feel like they were part of the day, and many of the people that care for Laura are people of color, and I wanted them to know that we shared the family value of color being important to us and into her life as well. This is an example of what this means for a live-in support person to work in Laura's home, and her son, TJ, and then Laura is in the chair, and behind her is the other roommate that is supported by the agency. This particular dynamics has changed because the other roommate has moved to Boston, and the roommate and her son have moved out, but we have another woman with her daughter that's about the same age, and it's just a beautiful way for these young children to learn the natural way to relate to people with disabilities. This little Jemiah, who's now 8 years old, she says to me for lunch one day, she said, you know, on the way here, she said, Laura put her camera up to her ear, and she said, we were having a phone conversation. So, and it was a camera, but it was for Laura, a phone. And then Jemiah thinks nothing of that. So she's got her little cell phone up there. Laura's got her camera that looks like a camera, and it isn't a phone. And that didn't mean anything to Jemiah. It was the conversation that was important. And so it's been a beautiful way for us to learn how you create family. And some of these caregivers that stay, and they stay for a while and they leave, we continue to have contact with them and meet up with them, and Laura as well, because it means that this is, again, a part of her extended family and friends. Then once a year, they do have this awards night at Arts of Life, and I always try to invite staff to it. I pay for their tickets, and so this is a picture, and then also Laura with her extended family. This always happens at a time that we're not home, and we are out of town. It just it really breaks my heart. But Laura is there with her niece, Kaylee, and our other daughter, Joanna, and then Carrie and Brittany, who are caregivers that come and are with her and know her quite well. And I told them, I'll buy your ticket, but you've got to really clap and shout loud when Laura gets her award. And so then they do, and then they send me video clips, and then it makes me feel like I was there for it. So it's, you know, that's the other thing of building community for her, is that when we're gone, I want those kinds of people to still be in her life. And then this is just a picture of her in action doing her artwork. And you can see how engaged she is in it. And it, as I said, it taught us a lesson of her capacity. So I'm so inspired that so many of you took your Saturday to come to be here to do this. It tells everyone how much it takes to work, but we don't ever give up. And I was so impressed with this quote that was in our packets today, and it's from the village of Hoffman Estates, and it's a quote from Margaret Mead, and part of it says, you know, we should achieve a richer culture and weave one in which each diverse human gift will find a fitting place. And I am a fan of Margaret Mead's, and one of the other quotes that I have had and have a t-shirt that I'll never give up that says, it takes a small group of committed citizens to make changes. Indeed, that's the only way. And many times we are that small group. So I want to encourage all of us to continue to never give up and continue to believe that our children have a special place that is integrated, and people come to surround them with as much of their gifts that they can give. So I'm now open to any questions that you may have.
So the person who is living with Laura, do they make enough money? That's their only job? They don't work another place?
It's a pretty tight way to live. And they do get, you know, their food, they get their housing, so those are two big chunks of your life, and they don't have to, you know, have any of those expenses. But they can work a part-time job outside of this job, but a part-time job where the hours would be flexible enough that they are back to commit to the hours that they have contracted with the agency. Or sometimes they work in other households. That's the other option. So it's, yes, it's a tight budget, but it takes somebody that can be pretty creative with what they are able to do with a small amount of money.
Hi. Well, first of all, I just want to say, commend you and your husband for the outstanding support and dedication that you have to the special needs community. My question refers to, you spoke about that your daughter owns her own home, the condo. Are there any specifications or regulations for her doing that with her disability, or any guidelines that you have to follow?
No, we did like what any other person would do who would be living, who would be wanting to look at a place for our family member to live. Obviously, it had to be accessible, but that is a big challenge, a big challenge. It's a big challenge for anyone that has any kind of disabling condition. Fortunately, the building that we chose had a carport in the back where all people parked their cars, and that had a back door that went in that was accessible, and an elevator. There have been times where this elevator has broken down, which I may have said, and now, because again, I made arrangements with the community fire department that if it's not an emergency for them, they will come over and take Laura down the steps to get to her day program or wherever she's going. And then at the end of the day, when they come back, when she comes back, they're there to take her back up. You just never know how these connections will help you in the future. But I feel it's like really important to do whatever we can to make our needs known. So then we had to adapt. We had to gut the bathroom, but it was already being gutted because it was a building that was apartment living and they were going to convert it to condo. And that part, we just happened to be lucky. So we did some adaptations. Adaptations are terribly expensive. Her bedroom and her bathroom, are very accessible. And she's got, she can wheel anywhere. It's all on one floor, so she can wheel through her entire condo. And we had hardwood floors put in for that reason, that it would make it easy for her to do that. But the kitchen is not adaptable for her, and I started to think about what would that do to renovate the kitchen, and it's just really, really expensive. So it would be those kinds of things that anyone would have to think about if they were moving a person in with a disability. And she can still get the money from the Department of Human Services and her Social Security because you can own a home and a car and still receive those benefits. So then, technically on paper, the agency, Laura pays, her part of the mortgage, and then the live-in, the other person that's being supported also pays. And I made sure from the very beginning that each of them would be paying the same amount. Laura doesn't pay less and the other person pay more. They paid the same amount. And we did get startup money from the Illinois Housing Development Authority for a down payment, which really helped to lower the monthly mortgage rates. And that was for people that were buying their first home and were either a senior or a person with a disability. And typically they wanted the person to be their own guardian, but they were willing to experiment with us. And it has worked out really well. And then what's beautiful about that startup grant that we got is that it will be there for Laura for as long as she owns a home, even if she were to sell this home and move to another home. As long as she's a homeowner, that stays with her. Then when she dies, that money that was given to her at the beginning of her being a homeowner will go back to the state or the federal program to help somebody else. And again, I think that's a beautiful way to do it. We also have something like that with our own village, that they give her a stipend every month that goes toward paying her mortgage, and then when she dies, that will also be paid back. But it's sort of like you are given and you give, and I just really embrace that kind of concept.
We have one more question for you, Ellen.
Hi, Ellen.
Hi.
My only question is to do with the personal care workers, the person who lives a 24-hour worker and also the day workers. Do they get benefits?
Yes, they get benefits like a full-time job, and they're good benefits. At first, it was a little bit more. It was on kind of a contract, and they were given a flat amount, and then they were given no benefits. But as time moved on, and there's a lot to do with the Department of Labor, that you have to abide by certain rules and regulations, and so we've had to tighten this up. It means, however, that we are suffering as an agency for supporting only 2 people in the home, and we are asking the department for a waiver to serve 3. but it would still be that live-in support model. And we have the license as an agency to do shift staff, but if we go forward with it and we're exploring it, we would try to keep it at 4 persons living with shift staff and no more than 4. And we're really doing that for economical reasons. Value-wise, we believe in what we started with.
Thank you so much. Let's hear it for Ellen. What a dynamic team.